And good morning to Stasha, who has come to yoga class with Pat. Is sitting so prepared for yoga, I can see. The concentration in the dog is very high. Okay. All right, so let's take a comfortable seat wherever you happen to be, and you're welcome to close your eyes. And we close the eyes while remembering each other and remembering the world of which we are a part, but we close the eyes to help still the mind, to make fewer distractions. So when you close your eyes and you let your attention ripen for your practice this morning, you can imagine you're turning your attention on like a little dimmer switch. And as you just slowly brighten your awareness or your attention, begin that at the base of your pelvis. So at the pelvic floor, in fact. And you can sense the bony landmarks there to be your sitting bones, your tailbone, and your pubic bones. There are two pubic bones. They are joined at the pubic symphysis. So we say pubic bones, plural, sitting bones, plural, and then your tailbone. And so when you brighten your awareness gently here at the pelvic floor, you can imagine that you're greeting the element of the earth. The first chakra is associated with the element of earth, of grounding, of knowing where our roots are. And also when you inhale, just send the breath down to lightly expand your pelvic floor. And when you exhale, sense a gentle toning of the pelvic floor. So this is a pulsation that you have some leadership with through your relationship with the breath. But don't bring any sense of coercion to the relationship, please. And the inhale gently widening and also causing the pelvic floor to descend. And then your exhale gently toning and causing a little lift at your pelvic floor. Just try that pulsation for a few breath cycles more. You're breathing into the region between those bony landmarks. Pubic bones, sitting bones, tailbone. And then brighten your awareness and bring it up into the deep low belly, just a few degrees higher than the pelvic floor. You're just above your pubic bone and at the center of the sacrum, in that sort of cross section of your body. Let your awareness now include the first chakra and the second. And at your inhale, you can have a sense it widens the pelvic floor and then comes up to greet the deep low belly. And the exhale begins at the pelvic floor, sort of scooping in and up, and then tones at the deep low belly. And then you have to be willing to slowly release that tone to welcome the next inhale. So there is a fluid process, a smooth process between those. And now allow your awareness, you can turn the dimmer switch to bring it up a little bit more, almost like if you'd been scuba diving very deep, where it's quite dark down there, and you have this headlight you wear as a scuba diver. You're now coming up second chakra, now come up to the third chakra. We haven't surfaced yet up to the air, but as you're coming up to the third chakra, include now the inhale widens your pelvic floor. It lets the deep low belly start to expand, and that concentrically widens into your side ribs, into your floating ribs front and back. And the exhale can gently tone the pelvic floor and move upwards, like along the front line of your spine, towards the solar plexus. And just do that twice more. So you're sensing the breath from the base up to your mid-abdomen. And then sensing again from the base up to the interior of the abdomen, up towards your solar plexus. And then you can bring your hands together at your heart. And this morning we'll chant the Gayatri mantra. We're going to say, Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha. And what we're saying there is we're honoring all the realms. That is the realm that is the earth realm, the realm that is of the sun, the Surya, and the realm that is of the heavens. So the earthen chakras are first, second, and third. You can sing with me. Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha. Tatsavitur Varenyam Argo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. With your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart. Release your hands and please open your eyes. So yesterday evening in the Dharma talk, I noted that, excuse me, as I'm gardening in my garden in the place that I call home, as I'm gardening, I make a pretty strong effort for certain things to happen because it's required. And without my effort, the bishop's weed would just take over the whole garden. It would be happy to flourish. Bishop's weed would be happy to be 6 feet tall and everywhere. It would go to the neighbors' houses. It would travel down the street if it wanted to. If it had this this permission, if it was unsupervised. So in a way, we are cultivating the garden of the mind when we practice yoga. And if we don't cultivate something, the weeds will take over. The weeds of the mind will take over. These are the inauspicious mental habits. They would just take over. So we are practicing on purpose to have a more clear body, but also a more clear heart and a more clear sense of the mind, consciousness. So with this in mind, we're going to come down to the floor to do a few things, and then we'll check that breath process again. Then we'll practice and we'll check the breath process again and see what's happening for us. So I'd like you to have 2 yoga blocks, and you can come down to the floor if you're not there now. And I'll take my water and my microphone. And I don't think I have to change cameras today, Susie, because I started with the phone camera. So today I'd like you to take these 2 blocks and set them like this on a little diagonal so that they make a spot for you to have a seat on. And then you set them so that when you're sitting on these 2 blocks with the knees up, you have the sense that you're actually resting at the trochanter on the 2 blocks. And if you were to pick up, right, you're sort of like hovering right there. This sensation, for those of you who haven't had the experience yet, the sensation here at the back of the hip bone, the thigh bone, is the sensation of holding on to the tuk-tuk when you're the last one to get into the tuk-tuk. And all that's left is the metal bar on which to sit. So that is the sensation. And you're happy to be in the tuk-tuk because you don't want to be left in downtown Tiruvannamalai in the mayhem. So you get on and you hold to the tuk-tuk. And sometimes you put your feet out the side just for frivolity and fun. But this sensation right here at the back of the trochanter, I want you to be able to rest into. So roll slightly back, put your hands on the floor behind you. When you lift your feet, you should feel that the edges of the block just touch the edges of your sacrum. And then roll forward, touch your toes down, heels down, reach past. And then roll backwards so the knees can come towards each other. Put your fingers behind you. Raise your knees up. There's the edges of the sacrum you are touching. And then roll your toes to the floor, heels to the floor. Reach past. And we're going to roll a few times more. So you are offering a massage alongside the sacrum and at the back of the trochanter bones. And you have to use the deep low belly muscles. Even when you reach forward here, notice that the low belly should be drawing in. When you roll back, a sense that the low belly draws in. When you hug the knees to the chest, again, there's the low belly, the tone there. Okay, a couple times more. If you want to pair this with the breath, you can exhale when you're rolling back. And you can inhale when you're rolling forward, reaching the high point of your movement and your inhale at the same time. And roll it back. And last time, roll it forward. And then roll yourself up to sit in a vertical place. Let's put the soles of the feet together. So now you are still resting on those 2 blocks. And when you put the knees out, you're probably resting on the block right outside of your thigh bone or your trochanter. Take your hands out over your knees. Raise up through your spine, a little bit like doing cow pose. Let's inhale. Open your chest, your heart, and your throat. And then exhale and glide your torso forward, not by reaching your chin forward, but by using your pelvis to tip the torso forward. And then inhale, lift your heart, straighten your elbows, lift your collarbones, open your throat, raise your gaze. And exhale, glide forward. You can bend the elbows so you are coming forward. You're changing where your body weight is on the blocks very slightly. And inhale, roll up, straighten your elbows. You're kind of on the back of the trochanter here. And exhale, glide forward. Okay, last one. Inhale, rise up. A little bit like doing cow pose. Secure your hands to your knees so you're actually pulling up. And exhale, bend your elbows to glide forward. The shoulders can act a little bit like cobra pose, right? And then rise up to sit and rest your hands where they're most comfortable for you. Close your eyes. And see if you can get very still in this plumb line. If you bring awareness now down to the pelvic floor, the position is changed from the way we've taken our seat and what we're doing with the two blocks. So try to check the inhale, expanding, and then your capacity for the exhale to tone the pelvic floor and for that to lift up into the deep low belly, just even a few degrees above your pubic bone. When you inhale and make contact with the pelvic floor, you can think to yourself, I'm reconnecting to the earth. I'm deepening my commitment to the earth. I'm giving myself a place to become more grounded. And when you exhale and you're toning the pelvic floor, you can imagine a phrase for yourself, something like, and I want to rise up from there, you know, in terms of rising up towards wisdom or discernment. And do that one more time. Walk your hands back behind you, bring your knees up to center, and as you roll back, let's keep the feet on the floor for a few moments. You've rolled back to a place on the sacrum. Take your knees over to the right, and then pick both knees up towards your right shoulder. And then touch the toes down, come over to your left block, take your knees to the left, raise your knees up towards your left shoulder, lower the toes down. So you are going to be going across left to right here. This is intended to be a massage on the myofascial region where your sacrum touches into the musculoskeletal place of your pelvis, to the edge of the sacrum. Do what you can to keep the knees together. So as you're going across, you pick the knees up towards each shoulder and you operate the knees and the feet and shins like a unit, which means you're steering from the low belly. I would recommend that you touch the toes down just as lightly as possible, or at this point you can touch them down not at all. You're rolling down and across. Bring your knees up to the opposite shoulder, and let's do it twice more. So finish with your left shoulder, and then bring that back to center. And as you find your place on your blocks, one more time sit in Bharmanasana. And notice if it's possible that your inhale has a little bit greater access now to the pelvic floor. And if the release of the belly muscles you were just using, if you can let that be a complete release, you'll have the inhale come in. And then are you able to tone the belly maybe more deliberately, more gracefully, more completely during your exhale? One more time, please. Breathing in. And then observe the exhale, toning the pelvic floor and coming up in the inner belly, up towards the third chakra or the solar plexus, whichever you want to say. Okay, and let's bring the knees up together. And what we're going to do is put the two blocks under your hands. Now we're going to come to table pose. For those who would like to, you can put padding under your knees for table pose. And we put the hands on these blocks to make the arms longer, so a little bit more opening for the upper back and heart. When you next inhale, please press into cat pose and take the tailbone deliberately down towards your knees. And then exhale and roll forward into cow pose. Bring your heart forward as the sitting bones go up and back. Okay, inhale to cat. And broaden the back of your body, especially at your lower back. And then exhale, roll forward to cow pose, open your spine, but especially in your heart, in your upper chest spine too. And then inhale to cat, gaze down between your knees. And exhale to cow, and let your heart come forward, open the upper chest, throat, and gaze forward and up. Once more, inhale to cat pose, please. And then exhale to cow pose. Start from your sitting bones, raise your tailbone, bring your heart forward and open. And then let's go back for a visit into child's pose. Please bring a block with you. And when you place the block under your head, turn your palms face up so that what you're doing is rolling the shoulders gently open in child's pose. Now we're going to start from yesterday's practice, how we were using the inhale in one part of the pelvic floor and the exhale in another. So when you inhale, try to imagine the breath expanding into the back hemisphere of the pelvic floor. That means between your sitting bones and your tailbone. And when you exhale, try to sense a gentle tone in the front hemisphere of the pelvic floor, between your pubic bones and your sitting bones. And do that a few times. You're going to start sensing the reciprocity between these parts of your pelvic floor. Notice that each part deserves your full attention, but your mind might be more staccato, less gelato. It might wander and be more intermittent, not more consistent. So do your best to make it more consistent, more smooth. The transition from toning at the end of the exhale to the beginning of your inhale is a very important transition, as is the transition from the fullness of the in-breath to the beginning of your out-breath. And now please walk your hands back towards your knees. And I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit unusual. Place your blocks here for your knees to go on. So you're going to step up with the knees on the blocks, and then the hands will be lower on the floor. And what you can do is place the knees just a couple inches back behind your hips. And let's do a little test drive. If you were to go up to your downward dog pose, do you feel like you can come down with your knees to your blocks gently enough? Right? And if the knees and the blocks need to be adjusted, please go ahead and do that. I just moved mine farther back, so it makes more sense for my dog pose to come down. Okay, and then we're going to inhale. Let's bring the chest and heart forward in cow pose. And pause here. I want you to take several breath cycles. Inhale to the back hemisphere of the pelvic floor. And exhale, tone the front hemisphere of the pelvic floor. Even while you're in cow pose, can you sense the inner belly lifting in towards your sacrum? Again. And exhale. Now inhale to cat pose. And sense the same process here. In the inhale and cat pose, can you find the back hemisphere of the pelvic floor? On the exhale, can you find the front hemisphere of the pelvic floor? Notice with your knees elevated that your cat pose might help you to broaden your lower back even more than usual. And imagine that broadening allows the front low belly to have a place to sweep the belly inward and upward towards your sacrum. So the back canopy of your body would not be posing a resistance or a hindrance to the deep tone in your lower belly. Now please follow me. We're going to inhale to cow pose. Exhale, rise up, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, cat pose. Touch the knees down and continue into your cat pose. Inhale, cow pose. Bring your heart forward. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Raise your hips high. Press from your heart down through your arms. Inhale, reach forward, plank pose. And exhale to cat pose. Touch your knees lightly down to your blocks and broaden the back of your body like a parachute. Okay, one more time. Inhale, cow pose. Okay, exhale, downward facing dog. Notice the front hemisphere of your pelvic floor and your deep low belly. Inhale, plank pose. You can notice the back hemisphere of the pelvic floor in plank. And then exhale, touch your knees down. Here comes your cat pose. Tone from the pubic bone in towards the center of your pelvic floor and up towards your sacrum. And now reach backwards. With your knees on the blocks, reach back towards child's pose. It is okay and actually recommended that you would tuck your toes under in this child's pose with your knees elevated. Press both hands down and forward to broaden the back of your body. Let the hips reach way back, so the tailbone is heavy towards your pubic bone. And now walk your hands back towards your knees, and you can rise up. I hope you have the toes tucked under. So you're going to rise up with your knees on your blocks like this. Reach your arms forward, and then see if you can roll yourself into a toe balance where you're going to pick up the knees and balance. So the knees should keep your lap open. We are not balancing by raising the knees up to the chest or heart. You have lifted the knees, and where you're balancing from is the pelvic floor and the deep low belly. Raise your toe balance up a few degrees. Let your toe balance go down a couple degrees without losing tone in the pelvic floor. Raise it up just a few degrees. And then raise your arms up overhead in your toe balance. Now what's happening in the low belly and the pelvic floor? You actually were just in this position doing your downward dog pose, essentially. It was part of your transition. You roll the arms forward. Now you're gonna lightly put the knees back on those blocks. How will you get there? And how will you get there respectfully of both knees? And walk your hands forward. Okay, downward facing dog pose. And now walk your hands backwards with straight elbows. Walk one hand at a time. And you do have this really cool obstacle to walk up and over as you walk back to Uttanasana. Let's place the feet so they're hip distance apart, please. And bring your blocks in for your hands. As you inhale, glide your heart forward, lift your sitting bones, and let the back of the pelvic floor open. When you exhale, bow towards your legs, press into your hands and tone from the front hemisphere of your pelvic floor into your belly. Inhale, glide forward again. And exhale to bow towards your legs, so you're cultivating this internal tone One more time, inhale forward. And now exhale to bow deeply. And then place your 2 blocks in your little triangle position and come down for a seat for a few moments. So this is like we call R&D, means research and development. You're doing the R&D of yoga. So you went out there for your development and your research. Now you come back and you check and see, okay, what is the outcome? So please sit in Balasana. Rest your hands over your knees. And to sense where you want to be in your pelvis, if you take the pelvis like too far back to a posterior tilt or too far forward where you're using your back muscles to hold yourself up, try to find the center place where it's like the inner channel of the body is holding you up. Let your breath and your mind relax. And just try once or twice now a more deliberate breath. So the inhale to expand the pelvic floor, and it concentrically expands even up into your side and back ribs. The exhale to tone your pelvic floor. Please do that one more time, and I'm going to ask you to really notice at the end of your exhale, without just sort of dropping the pelvic floor tone. So you've cultivated that tone. How are you welcoming the inhale to then touch and expand the pelvic floor, not abruptly, but smoothly? And then please bring your knees up. And we're going to use your yoga strap. And yesterday I was teasing that the yoga straps are feeling kind of lonely because we haven't been using them very much. And then we used them in this so simple, like non-dramatic way yesterday that maybe the yoga strap felt kind of bored. So I'm going to use it with you now like this. Make the loop much bigger. This is for a pose called Supta Padangusthasana. This is what I'd like you to do. Lie on your back and stretch your left leg out on the floor. Bend your right knee so it's just like this. Okay, so when you lie down, in fact, if you could do both legs and notice that your pelvis will have a kind of symmetrical neutral experience. Then when you bend your right leg and you place your knee up and your foot down, your pelvis goes through a very slight change there. It's no longer symmetrical. And if you bring your right knee up to your chest, it goes through another change. Right? So the right ilium and the left ilium, right and left hip bones, are not having the same experience. Keep drawing your right knee towards your chest using your abdominal muscles, not your hands. And notice what happens. As you try to bring your right knee closer, where do you do that from? Inside your belly. And what happens to your left leg? And then can you slowly bring your right knee and your right foot back to this bent position where your foot's on the floor? And can you also slowly take your right leg out next to your left leg? And then release the belly muscles you were just using. Now casually bend your left knee, place your left foot flat on the floor. Notice that the two hip bones have a different experience left to right. And casually bring your left knee up to your chest and notice that things are changing again. And if you add now this deliberate kind of draw your left knee in towards your chest, so this is less casual, more deliberate. Notice the tone of the low belly and what happens for your right leg. And what you've gotten a glimpse of here across the low belly, sustain that as you touch your left foot and your left knee down. And sustain it as you slide your left leg out to meet your right leg. And then release the tone of the belly and the deliberateness and notice your body. Now adding maybe like 20% of that tone across the front of your abdomen, slowly pick up your right knee, glide your right heel on the floor. And keeping the tone across your belly like your seatbelt muscles, bring your right knee towards your chest. Take your yoga strap and place it around your right foot with your right hand in the strap with your right foot. Now I've said let's do maybe 20% of the tone that you had, and I'm going to recommend that you keep that tone, but it's breathable. You ought to be able to continue breathing. Lengthen your left leg away from your hips, your right leg up towards the ceiling. And bring your awareness down into the pelvic floor and really take notice that the two sides of your pelvic floor are having very different experiences. Your right leg is in flexion. Your left leg is in extension. Rotate your right knee and your right toes to your right. And begin to just very slowly take your right leg out to the side. Slowly enough that you can sense the tone across the front of your abdomen. Particularly, I'd like you to sense that tone on your left low belly and the left hemisphere of your pelvic floor. If you're substituting tone with your left arm or shoulder, try relaxing your left fingers, your left shoulder, and sense the tone, the duty at the left low belly, left side of the pelvic floor. So we can't really permit the right leg to travel willy-nilly out to the right if you start tipping over to your right. So even the left side of your sacrum, ideally that would be as connected to the ground as your right side is right now. Notice the quality of stability that you have, and if possible, any kind of working hypothesis, how would this have been different without the work we did before this moment? Your right leg can continue to travel to the right just so far as you really sense that tone and grounding on the left side. You should not have a sense of laxity in the body right now. Well, the left arm can be relaxed, but not a sense of laxity in your legs. Not a sense of laxity in the mind either. That should be toned as well. Okay, now let's very slowly start bringing the right leg back up. And notice that the left low belly has to activate to help you pick up the weight of your right leg. The left hemisphere of your pelvic floor, you're relying on that right now. Of course, you're relying on the right hemisphere too. They just have slightly different tasks. Excellent job, thank you. Release your right foot from the strap. Now please do this, bend your right knee and hug it in towards your chest without your hands. And keep the left leg long. And as you go to lightly touch your right toes and right heel down, see if you can slide your right foot out to meet your left foot. And then let both legs, starting at the toes and heels, let your legs go limp. Relax your calves, your kneecaps, your thighs, your pelvis, and then the low abdomen. And ask of your pelvic floor, what tension wants to be released right now? What little holding pattern, mental or physical, could be surrendered? If your pelvic floor feels asymmetrical right now, that would be kind of an expected outcome because you did an asymmetrical activity. So keeping your right leg relaxed. Now bring about 20% of the tone you need in the belly, just across from hip bone to hip bone, and slide your left knee up. When you're gliding it up, notice if it has like extra drag on it, or it's extra hard or extra easy relative to your right. And float your left knee in towards your chest. And take your yoga strap and your loop to put over your left foot. There you go. And left leg up, which means right leg out. Wonderful. And go down to visit again with your pelvic floor. It's asymmetrical once more. The right leg is in extension. Your left leg is in flexion. So notice any change of how the breath feels welcomed when the pelvic floor is asymmetrical. For those of you who have kind of a keen imagination and a strong connection to the pelvic floor, if you were to sense the back and front hemisphere, right and left hemisphere, you then have 4 quadrants. And it's possible that one of those quadrants feels less breathable than another. Just speaking from my own experience, it would be the left front quadrant right now in this position. And so that's a place that I could put my attention a little bit more. And you might have a different experience and a place that's calling for your attention. Rotate your left knee and your left toes to your left. Notice that that makes a slight change already at the pelvic floor. And as you start taking your left leg out, just go really slowly. We're not in a hurry. And I want you to sense, how does your pelvic floor respond, especially the right hemisphere of your pelvic floor, and also your right low belly. You might notice how your right hand is responding, or the right side of your face, neither of which can hold you in this position. Try to sense if you allow the left leg to continue going, if it goes kind of quote unquote unsupervised, what happens to the weeds of your mind. But if you cultivate your attention, what happens in the garden of your inner body? How will you know where to call your end range in this physical yoga pose? Based on what in your inner body? Based on what in your breath? And on what quality of mind? To really give attention at the first chakra, we're cultivating qualities like stability, security, a sense of safety, To do that, we need to have consistency of attention, so concentration and cohesion. Don't underestimate the power of the work that you're doing in this simple yoga pose. I will ask you to notice once more the right hemisphere of the pelvic floor and the right hemisphere of the low belly as we begin the journey to bring the left leg back up. Also, for those of you who had a sense of the 4 quadrants of the pelvic floor a bit ago, take notice not to leave out the part that might feel a little bit less accessible or a little bit dull. When your left leg comes up, you can take the strap off. Bend your left knee so it comes in towards your chest without your hands. And then begin the process of gliding your left toes back to the floor. And then your left heel. And as you glide out, when the legs then meet up with each other again, let both legs deeply relax. From your heels to your calves, to your knees, to your thighs, then also release your pelvis, your butt muscles, the deep low belly muscles. And you can ask of the pelvic floor once more, what pattern of tension wants to be released? You might even ask, is there a mental habit that goes with that pattern? And then please gently put about 10 or 20 degrees of the tone you need in the belly to glide your right knee up, glide your left knee up, and then roll to your side. And come back to your seat with your 2 blocks. Just for a moment, we're going to check in here. We are going to come to standing after this. So this is a scenic turnout. Notice where you position yourself on the blocks. You want to position for stability, so you're neither leaning too far forward nor too far back. Working with your pelvic floor is for mental and physical health, not only like a physical, subtle body thing, but this is also influencing your mind. So you can ask yourself now, if you breathe in to the pelvic floor, so back hemisphere for the inhale and front hemisphere for the exhale, how smooth is your experience now? You might recall the inhale is going to expand the back and sides of the torso. The exhale is going to tone the deep and front low belly. The greatest amount of tone at the exhale should be at the end. The greatest amount of expansion from the inhale will be at the end of the inhale. The way you transition matters. When you're ready to, you can then please make your way up to standing. My guess is that your seat has been getting a little bit easier, or that when you sat like this again, it might feel like, oh, it's more comfortable physically or structurally. When you come up to standing, I'd like you to have 2 blocks, and I'll be doing a profile view for you. So let me do my left leg as my right leg to mirror your right leg. So let's put the 2 blocks like this, please. Yeah, this is for an exploration in Trikonasana and triangle pose. So if you can stay facing forward towards your camera if you want to. I just want to show you a profile for me. So if you'll put your right foot forward and your left foot back, so that you are here in a basic lunge pose like this. And please check for me that if you look back, you've got your left foot lined up with your left hip and your right foot lined up with your right hip. So your feet are not on like one line. You're not on a tightrope or a balance beam. Come to your fingertips so you're not collapsing your chest down towards your right thigh. So in this position, I would like you to press into your fingertips actually to increase some tone for the low belly. And then notice that the pelvic floor is again asymmetrical. And as you slowly inhale, begin to straighten your right leg. Inhale to the back hemisphere of your pelvic floor. A little bit like doing cow pose, your chest and heart may come forward at the top of your inhale. When you exhale, begin from your tailbone to glide your right knee forward, return to your basic lunge, bring your gaze down towards your right heel. Inhale, glide back. Breathe into the back hemisphere of your pelvic floor, straighten your right leg slowly, bring your heart and your gaze forward. And then exhale, keep your left leg strong as you glide your tailbone, your right hip, your right thigh, your right knee forward. Gaze down near your right heel. Same thing again. Inhale, glide your hips back. Breathe into the back hemisphere of your pelvic floor. Shine your heart forward. And then exhale, keep the left leg strong. So when you glide the tailbone down, you can actually feel that the tailbone goes towards the pubic bone. From the pubic bone, tone your pelvic floor in towards your sacrum. Let's do it once more. You can sense a little bit of cow pose there and then a little bit of cat pose here as you come forward. Here is your basic lunge. Keep the left leg strong behind you. Now turn the blocks up to the tall setting. One more time, straighten your right leg. We're going to go to triangle pose, Trikonasana. So in this transition, I'd like you to pivot your back heel, your left heel down, but keep your fingers on your blocks for a moment. And notice how the shape of the pelvic floor has changed quite a bit at this point. So please follow my instructions. They're going to be structural, but it's intended to help energetically and in the inner body. So press into your right big toe, your right inner heel. Lengthen your right inner thigh by pressing from your hip into your big toe. Across your seatbelt muscles, begin to turn your pelvis to your left. Rotate your left hip back and root your left outer heel and left big toe. Then sweep up to triangle pose, Trikonasana. And really take notice of the strength of the legs, how we've set that up. So I want us to stay here for several breath cycles. If our foundation is strong, we can stay. And you can explore how you're influencing your pelvic floor right now. So keep the leg muscles toned, including the left outer hip has some tone to it right now. And let the inhale discover the back hemisphere of your pelvic floor, the back of your sacrum, the back of your waist, the back of your heart. And exhale from the front hemisphere of your pelvic floor up through the deep low belly. Remind yourself that you're gardening, so you're cultivating something inside that helps to prevent the weeds of the mind from growing. When you next exhale, start the process of returning your left arm down slowly. Keep your legs super steady, please. As you gaze down towards your right foot, then start bending your right knee. Keep the left leg strong. Reach into your left heel even as you're bending your right knee. You've just changed the shape of the pelvic floor again. Pivot your left heel up. Turn the two blocks down to the medium setting. They're going to be more stable that way. And then step your right foot back next to your left foot. So you can come into downward dog pose with your hands on your blocks. And if your body feels asymmetrical, that would be expected. You step your left foot forward between your hands. I'm going to change my profile view, so I'll turn around. You can stay as you are, facing where you are. So left foot forward now, right toes back. And check once more that you have your back foot and your front foot at hip width. So they're not on a tightrope, you're not on a balance beam. Press into your fingertips. And as you inhale, glide your hips back, lift your sitting bones and your tailbone. Let your chest and heart come forward. And then as you exhale, bend your left knee and try to keep the right leg really strong so it doesn't give up its position. Your left hip, left thigh, left knee, glide forward. Gaze down near your left heel. Inhale, glide back, heart forward. And exhale, glide your left thigh forward. And really think about keeping your right leg strong behind you. You are stretching and making elastic parts of your pelvic floor that may not in otherwise daily life have this opportunity. So inhale, glide your hips back, sitting bones, tailbone back, heart forward. And exhale, glide your left thigh bone forward, gaze down near your left heel. Now turn the blocks to the tall setting. And as you straighten your left leg this time, glide back through your sitting bones. And without turning the torso yet, pivot your right heel to the floor. And I'm going to give those physical instructions again, but I want you to press into your left big toe, left inner heel, lengthen the inseam of your left leg. And as you start turning your seatbelt muscles, that is your deep belly muscles, to the right, rotate your right hip right and press firmly into your right heel. And then raise your right arm up for triangle pose. And my hope is that you feel like the foundation that you've just made is really quite strong and stable. I want the foundation to be stable enough that you actually have the time to do this inner dialogue with yourself. Check that your right outer hip is still toned. It's not on vacation. It's not in Shavasana. Continue to lengthen your left inner thigh into your left big toe. You're doing great. And just twice now, 2 more breath cycles. Inhale, the back hemisphere of the pelvic floor, the back hemisphere of your pose. And exhale up the front line of the spine. And then as you exhale, release your right arm, but keep the leg steady for now. You can take your hands back to your blocks. Put your mind inside your pelvic floor and start to bend your left knee. You're about to change the shape of the pelvic floor again. Keep the right inner thigh lifted and strong. Make the left inner thigh long. And then turn the blocks down to the medium setting. They're going to be more stable. Pivot your right heel up and please step backwards to your downward dog pose. And then roll forward, touch your knees down. And take your seat one more time. You guys did a great job with that exploration. Thank you, thank you. It's great to see you also in your triangle poses looking so stable. So very nice. Okay, let's see. What does your seat hold for you here? You want the blocks to help you. It should not feel like you're sinking down between the two blocks, nor that you're held up above completely, but there's a middle path there, as if you were a boat. The pelvic floor is shaped more like a canoe. It's not a trampoline. So as if you were a little boat, canoe boat, just part of the boat in the water, part of the boat not in the water. And you can ask of your pelvic floor anything it wants to surrender, a place of tension, a habit of holding, an experience of apprehension, something that might lead to the disconnect that you feel in daily life, either from your own inner sense of stability or a disconnect from the earth. And we're going to take this down to the floor and using the two blocks. But while we're here, can we please do this? Can you check if you lean back now? Are you able to balance? Do you have a sense of where the blocks are and that you could balance, kind of like in a baby boat pose? It's okay if you can't quite balance just yet, but let's find out if you can. Yeah, that's nice to see. And what muscles do you need to use inside the belly for that balancing? Not your hands, Pat. I did see that. Yeah. Hands free. Look, Mom, no hands, like that. Yeah. Thank you. So where are you balancing from, right? And it needs your pelvic floor and the deep low belly muscles. It's not using the teeth to balance in this case. So we're going to put these two blocks in a slightly different position. If you haven't been to class before where I'm doing this kind of work, then please watch for a moment. So when I lie down, we're going to take the blocks on the medium setting. This is called medium. And the two blocks will still have a little triangle underneath them. And the tip of the triangle will be facing towards your tailbone. So when you come into position, you lift the blocks, lift the hips, excuse me, place the blocks so you're in a supported bridge pose. Yeah, right there. So this supported bridge pose, what it means is that you have along the edge of the sacrum, there is your yoga block to support you. Yep, beautiful. You can tuck the shoulder blades under, so it kind of feels like bridge pose to the upper back, chest, and heart too. Now from this supported bridge pose, just pick up your knees. So your feet are going to be bent right there. Yep. This means that you put a little more weight on those blocks at this moment, and you can feel the edges of the sacrum, right side, left side. Start bringing your knees gently towards your chest, just a few degrees, maybe about 10 or 20 degrees, not 180 or 90. And then take your knees a few inches away from your chest, slightly past what would be vertical for the plumb line, maybe 10 degrees past. I'm going to ask you to do this a few times. So the knees are drifting in and out, and we're just staying in kind of a small range. Maybe you'll feel the massage on the sides of your sacrum. That's sort of an obvious sensation, but see if you can also notice, how does your pelvic floor participate in these transitions for you? When your knees are closer to your chest, what is the difference? When your knees move away from your chest, what are you relying on there for support? And if the answer is that you're just squeezing everything, that would not be a great answer. And if your answer is you're supporting yourself with your teeth, your jaw, your thumbs, that would also not be an ideal answer. Okay, now the next time that your knees are coming towards your chest, go ahead and make sure the blocks won't tip. You can hold them if you want to, and let the knees come in quite far to the chest so that you're now doing a lying down version of child's pose, a supported child's pose. And invite the deep low belly to release any unnecessary tension. This is a very powerful pose for resetting your nervous system. So don't overlook what's happening here. Remember that we're cultivating the garden of the mind because we don't want the weeds. You might even catch a glimpse here if your mind is a bit quieter in this position. And then start to glide your knees from your chest slowly towards what would be knees vertical position with your knees still bent. When your knees find that little vertical spot, I'd like you to pause there. The energetics of the pose are different. Allowing your mind to seek quiet, you can slowly start bringing your toes down. Do that with a sense that the deep low belly is like your chaperone to touch the feet very lightly down. And then you're back in a sort of supported bridge pose. Quite likely the chest is not lifted in bridge pose right now, and that's okay. Now I'd like you to press gently into your heels, pick up your hips, make the blocks flat, but keep them on these little angles. And come down, so you're going to rest the back of your trochanters right there on the blocks. And bring your knees up to point towards the ceiling again. Now it's possible that you're on a painful part at the back of the trochanter. So when you place the blocks and you pick up your knees, yes, you might have some muscle tension that's there. We are going to drift the knees again, in and out. You're at your own pace, and I can see that you're working with some sensitivity to your body. Invite your mind to get really restful as you're releasing these muscle insertions near the sacrum, releasing the tension. Invite your mind to become more and more restful. And notice how the deep low belly requires this kind of gentle snugging in, right? It's not tight, rigid, hard, it's not constricted, but there does need to be this gentle tone across the low belly. Breathable enough, supple enough. The next time your knees are coming towards your chest, bring them all the way. So you're going to likely feel that maybe even the very top of your sacrum will touch the floor, but the lower part of the sacrum won't yet. See if your mind can consider deep quiet. And start to roll your knees away from your chest. You'll feel the top of your sacrum likely touching the floor, and then maybe the upper part of the sacrum, not likely the middle part, and not yet the tailbone. But as you tone the belly to lightly put your feet back down, then press into your heels, take the blocks 1 more inch out, left and right, and put your feet into Bharmanasana. Now the blocks are on the outside edge of your trochanter, another possible tender spot in your body. And the sacrum would likely have the capacity to touch the floor here. As your sacrum gets heavy, invite your mind to get quiet. For the sacrum to release, you may have to also release the upper inner thigh muscles. Invite your pelvis, your pelvic floor, and your mind to get degree by degree, moment by moment, even more deeply relaxed. Return to the earth element and the water element. Stable and tranquil. And you can glide your knees up to center and stretch your legs out for. And in Shavasana, I'm going to recommend that you practice with a little light prayer, like, may the tension that can surrender do so. May the holding patterns in the body or the mind be resolved. In this Shavasana, may you be reunited with your deeply quiet mind. May you be reconnected to all that is and all that you are, all that has been and all that will be. Let the rest become deeply saturating. Not only the muscles, also the organs, the nerve pathways, even into the subtle body, the most subtle of places. Allow this rest to become deeply saturating. Welcome the possibility that some patterns become resolved without need of language. Allow all five senses to be at home in the body, for the deep release to be very saturating. And most deeply at the pelvic floor and the deep low abdomen. Let all senses return home, undistracted, free from temptation, craving, aversion. And keep your habit mind, your thinking mind, resting on the saturation of stillness. Your senses quietly at home in the abode of the second chakra, neither seeking nor resisting, not wandering about in grasping nor aversion. Once more, allow there to be a great heaviness and stillness, the grounding of the earth, the tranquility of water, your senses at home in the abode of the second chakra. Now keeping your body relatively still in Shavasana, awaken your mind to sense the experience from your pelvis and sacrum down to your heels. What is happening there now? And then awareness of the breath re-entering your body. Inhale to the low belly, mid-abdomen. And lightly wiggle your fingers. Reach your arms up towards the ceiling. And then arms overhead. Notice the sensations of the legs still and the breath. And you can bend the elbows, bend one knee at a time. Please roll to your right side and rest there in the fetal position for a few moments. When you rest on your right, let that be comforting, simple, and still. And you can one more time come up to sitting and place our blocks in the triangle position again. We'll take a little seat here. You guys did a fabulous job in your practice. I'm really proud of you for having this kind of dedication. This is an unusual practice, a very specific choice on my part today. With your consent, for those of you who weren't here in the first part of class, we did discuss it. So come up and find your seat. And let's check and see what this inner abode is like now. And notice that which calls you back home. So the earth element is our root. And the second chakra, Svadhisthana, means the abode of our home, the self, where the self is at home. It also means sweetness, the sweetness of homecoming. So with respect for that sweetness, let's bring the hands together at the heart. Om Bhurva Suvah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.
Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.